Hi there, welcome to Feldy Farming Simulator 11. We're in the barnyard here of Farmer Yip's map that he created, and we're in the middle of harvesting in our island out there that we created in an earlier episode. So let me just here we are at the island. So, I learned a couple things off cam. I started this in the previous episode, and I got frustrated when I couldn't hire the forage harvester. And so, actually, maybe I'll be hopping right out of game again to share a few things. But as I exit the tractor here and I enter our forage harvester over here, let me lift this up. So there's nothing in the help menu that says I can hire. And indeed, when I press the H key, nothing happens. I don't know if you can hear me tapping it on my keyboard, but it doesn't work. But so I went and looked at how the forage harvester was set up. I couldn't remember using it in a hired way before, and I just couldn't figure out. So maybe just to show how a modding problem can be attacked, I'll just pause here for the moment to show kind of what I did to figure it out. It is hireable, but just not in the way that I was trying to use it. And some of you probably knew when you were looking at the episode and maybe were talking to your screen, hoping I would get it, and it's just something I knew, but that I forgot. So, there we can kind of see the shape of the piece here that we are using the forage harvester on. I kind of like this island. It looks fairly picturesque, has hills. Hope Farmer Yip would approve. Anyway, let me hop out of game real quick. Let me just minimize these here. So, actually, if I open this up, I have the maize header. There was something key that I wanted to make sure that it had in there. And actually, I needed to open it up as it was, because you may recall when I started using this header, the auger on the header turned the wrong direction, as if it would take material away from the center, away from the chopper unit, and that just didn't make sense. So I had to fix for that. I also fixed a couple other things too, which I'll describe in a moment here. But the main thing I wanted to look at that I already have open here is if you want something to be hireable, well, first of all, you need to make sure that this up here is the proper vehicle type. This happens to be one specified by the Giants, cutter animated. And with cutter animated is going to be a number of different specializations, if you will. And a specialization here, let me show you something else. In the mod description, whenever you have one, actually, you know what? It doesn't show up in here. Let me grab. There's another one that will show it. It's in the forager unit itself. So let me pull that up here. Yes, keep it in the editor. It gets confused with all the zip files. Oh, actually, this one here I can drop. No, don't save it. Anyway, sometimes on mods, to tell the game engine what kind of mod this is, you have to tell it what kinds of specializations it is going to use. A specialization is a particular attribute or task that you want your vehicle to perform. So a lot of times when you open the mod description file, you'll see something that specifies the vehicle type. You want it to use, if it's a vehicle, you want it to be a vehicle. I don't know that there is any other class name at all other than vehicle. And you want it to use this Lua file. I mean, it's thousands of thousands of lines of code that define what a vehicle is. Then it says, well, with this vehicle, what types of extra specializations do you want it to have? So in vehicle, for example, you may have things that run the wheels, the tires, that make it tabbable, or, well, I don't know about tabbable or whatever, but you add these additional specializations, all of which have a Lua script behind them that tell the mod what to do. You want it to have a motor, you wanted it to be steerable, you want it to be cylindered, and cylindered means it has hydraulic cylinders that move different parts. A combine is going to have certain attributes. You want it hireable. I'd have to study a little bit more to figure out why these two are different. But then there's AI combine, meaning that you can hire this, and this is all on the forager unit, the one we just saw in game. And this one here is just to honk the horn. Now this I put in here. It wasn't formerly in here. I put it in here in my frustration trying to figure out how to make this thing hireable. So, I had to ask myself, well, what else in a combine? Well, I went and borrowed all of these from another combine that I have that I'm using in here where these were spelled out. So I knew this would make a regular combine go. So I gave it a new name, Yip Forager. And then, of course, this name has to match, what shows up in the XML. I'll just pull that up real quick. See, I got Yip Forager up here. Previously, I believe this was cylindered combine or something like that, which should work just fine. Now, I had to make some changes in here for some other things that I described at a previous time, having to do with the pipe and everything. But I took a fresh look at this thing and compared it line by line to the Giant's own forage harvester. Everything's in the same order, not that the order matters, but I just wanted to make sure that it had everything in here that the regular Giant's one did. I also did that over here on the cutter to make sure it also had everything. There's going to be some things in there that are different, parts and what have you. I just wanted to make sure it had all attributes, including the stuff that you see here for the left marker and right marker. This sits on the header on the left position, right position, and tells, basically how wide the unit is. And this is a collision trigger, which tells it when to stop, if you will, when it's going to run into something or that kind of thing. And if you don't have these attributes, well, maybe you can do without this one, I don't recall. But if you don't have these attributes in here, you cannot hire your vehicle. So when I tore this apart to look at it, sure enough, it had all of this in here. And no matter how much I tinkered, everything was there that needed to be there. And so it's like, why in the world isn't this working? So here, let me close this down. Then I thought, well, maybe it's something in the code itself. And everything that's in here, by the way, it isn't in here just for kicks. This is all picked up by some Lua script. So the AI combine is going to be picking up this stuff here. Something picks up rolls. I don't know what it is. But anyway, the scripts grab all this, so it's all in here for a purpose. So, well, maybe I would go look at the AI combine script that uses this stuff and just kind of see how it works. So, pulled up the code, and this up here says AI combine. There, of course, is another one called AI tractor. And usually, scripts, when you start looking at these, they all have similar things in them. They're always going to come with a load one. Sometimes they have a prerequisites present. Matter of fact, I think most of them do. A load file, for they'll have a delete if there's a trigger that they got to take out. They load it up here. They got to take it out. There'll be read stream, write stream. This is for multiplayer syncing that they'll have these two. Sometimes there is an update, or maybe they always have to have update. Sometimes maybe they'll also have an update tick. And as I've explained before, the DT is the frames of the game. So I think update gets called every frame of the game. It's going to run this code. Update tick, it goes a few ticks before it runs its code. So this one is more instantaneous. This one is almost instantaneous, but it takes a little bit of time. So typically when you look at these scripts, anything having to do with input bindings will show up an update. They want to make it very responsive so the player, when they press a key, that it happens, immediately. Well, so it's very common. I want to say, I hit the H key to try to hire, what in the world is going on in here? So that's the toggle AI. To turn that on or off, that's the H key. So if you hit the H key, then, well, if it's already threshing, then do this. Well, so I know it's not that. But if it's other than that, then it starts here. So, if self can start AI threshing. I just love this Lua code the way it is. I mean, it's intuitively named, just like it would be in game. Hey, can I turn this combine on? Can I start hiring or whatever? So can start AI threshing. What this means, is a little colon in here, it's going to go to another function. So we'll just copy it and then go find it. It's going to go to a function, and what it's asking a question. Can I start threshing? And if I can, then it says go ahead and start it. So we don't really need to look at anything down here in update tick. We got to answer this fundamental question whether I can hire something. So I was pressing H all the time in here, so something in this this particular function must be kicking back a no answer that says, no, you can't start AI threshing. So I went on here's another instance of it in the draw function. Okay, here it is. So down here, there is a function, AI combine can start AI threshing. Okay, well, so it goes through a series of questions. If in the current mission, the combine is disabled or AI is disabled, meaning you can't hire anything, then return false. Say no, then you can't hire. Well, I wasn't aware of anything preventing it, so if the number of attached cutters is none, then return false. Well, I knew that couldn't be. I had a cutter sitting on my forage harvester in game. It surely had one there, so the number of attached cutters would be greater than 0. So, but if it was 0, then it isn't going to let it move, so you would return false. Well, it couldn't be triggering that because it had a cutter. Then it comes to this one here. If 0 is less than the number of attached trailers, tell it to not start threshing. And finally, a light bulb went off. As we go back here in game, I have a trailer attached. So I have a sum total trailers attached of 1. So when you go back here again, if 0 is less than 1, that's how it's answering here, then return false. And it's like, oh my goodness. Because of this attached trailer, I'm not allowed to hire it. And this was something I knew and had just forgotten. I'm not even sure on the most recent versions of the game if you're allowed to attach a trailer and hire it. You probably can if you use course play. And I didn't even try using course play here. But I think the issue is it's not able to turn around. The turnaround mechanics for hired workers were kind of rudimentary in these early versions of the game. And so they were very precise calculations based on the particular vehicle. And so when you add a trailer to the vehicle, the combine in this case, the forage harvester, it has no idea how big the trailer is or how to get it to turn around at the end of the field without being totally hokey. So it's saying here, no, if you got an attached trailer, we're not going to let you harvest. And maybe they had no code to determine how full the trailer was. There's probably any number of reasons why they put it here. But these 3 lines of code is what was causing me to not to be able to hire my forage harvester. And there was something else here too. There's we've probably all, well, I say all, maybe a number of us have run into it, there is a maximum number of hireables. I'm not sure what it is, but the number is right here. We'd have to go looking in the code or get it to print out somehow. But once you reach the maximum, you're not allowed to hire anymore. So, and if you can pass all of these questions, meaning it's a false answer here, 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 and here, well, then it gets to the bottom and says, oh, okay, I guess we'll let you hire. So I just wanted to point that out. Sometimes you have to go back to basics. I should have known better, but I don't know. What can I say? I'm getting old and forgetful. Suffice it to say, we have a hireable machine. But, I remember the last time it was kind of like, maybe I can't get a tractor down here because this thing isn't going to hire. Well, I was just totally looking at it wrong. I needed to have a tractor down here or I couldn't hire. So here's what oops, I don't want to do that. I'm going to drop the trailer off and let me turn around. Actually, one other change I made. Let me just crank this thing up. Actually, you can't really see it. Well, you can kind of see it. The auger here in the middle. Remember how the flighting on the auger, when you turned it on, it would look like it was carrying material away from the center? Here's the center. You want it all to go into here. I fixed it, reversed the direction of the auger basically, so that material now goes in here. Of course, I had another problem when I reversed the direction. Now, the flighting was going correctly, but this was turning the wrong way. You want this flapper deal in the middle here to turn down, so that it grabs the material, sucks it down, and takes it into the chopper unit. So I had to totally flip-flop the auger inside the model so that it works properly. So now this goes down, the flighting takes it to the middle. It hopefully looks a little more visually, how it's supposed to be. And the longer I studied this particular model, the more that I think it doesn't exist in real life. Now, maybe somebody can confirm that for me, because I genuinely don't know. I have no idea what this was modeled after. But the ones I've seen in real life have 4 of these, I don't even know what you call them, blades? 4 of them, and they pinch. So this blade and this one here would turn towards each other. They would grab stalks as they come by and then shoosh them in between them. They would come over here. This wheel right here would pick those stalks up and then usher them over to here to the auger where they go in. Well, when you have 3 of them, how is that supposed to work? You have a pinch point here if these turn against each other. And then over here, if this is turning this way, it's bringing out while this one is trying to turn it in. So that just wouldn't make sense. So I tinkered with it a little bit, and that's why I think there'd be a 4th wheel on there, if you will. What I did instead is I at least wanted to, because there's also these hooks on here, if you will, that are grabbing corn stalks, I at least turned them in the direction so that they would grab a stalk and move it. You can see which direction they're bent. So I think if I did it right, this one is going to turn this way, this one also turns this way, and this one turns this way. Let me just give it a try. Maybe it'll make a liar out of me. Yeah, that's how it's turning. You can kind of just see it there. So I don't know if that's any better. Sometimes little details like that bug me. I don't know how it is for you. But if something's going to be animated, which is awesome, when someone does add in a mod. But if it's animated, it sure is helpful, if it's spinning the proper direction. So, anywho, thought I would mention that. I also made some changes. Those also had to be done in the XML. So let me just turn this bad boy off for the moment. I'm going to take him up the hill now that I have a few passes kind of around the field. And this is going to be a little troublesome, so I'll have to do some driving. Oops. But I think the shape of the field, well, it doesn't lend itself to it. I wanted to keep going back and forth. Yeah, I'm going to have to do some other areas here while I'm at it. But let me just take this up here, and I'm going to see if I can get this puppy higher. And if all goes to plan, let me just get him on the 180. Come on. Oh, too far. It's kind of hard to steer him on the hill. Ah, there we go. You know what? Is that close enough? Maybe. Alright, let me make sure he's going to go straight. And then I'm going to, let me see here. Yeah, you see that now? There's the key H for hire worker. So now I'm allowed to, so I'm going to hit H. It's going to stop and wait until I have my trader. And right down here we go. Just kissing the trader. So I think I still have a little bit of space in here. Alright, let me zip out here. We'll fill this bad boy up. We are almost full as it is, so I'm going to need to truck in. At some point it'll... There we go. Look at that. Oh, I like it. Of course, this thing gets full. It didn't get full. I don't want to go down in there. Alright, nobody pay any attention here. There's no corn stalks. I'm not running over anything up here. Yeah, it's trying to put some in the trailer now. Yeah, like I say, it is going to be a little ticklish here. And if I get really motivated, what I could do is install the autopilot in the forager, and it would allow it to go around the field. The thing of it is, not that I'm attempting to mimic true realism in here, but in real life, the forage harvester would never do, or wouldn't really do kind of what we've been doing. Maybe there are some rounds around the edge of the field, but typically a forage harvester, corn is planted in rows, so alright, there we go. We are full. And so would tend to just follow rows, but I know we can get away with murder here in Farming Sim, so. Alright, well, yeah, I'm probably going to be depleting fuel. Oh my goodness. I still wonder about this fuel mod. I just don't think it would use the sauce quite as rapidly as it does. Okay, so last time I should have made a course over to the BGA, so I'm going to do that because what this will allow me to do... Now, can I see the whole field? See, the trouble is if it's a straight line clear up to here, you gotta be careful because your driver... Yeah, I'll just have to make sure he's in the right place before driving off is the thing. Alright, let me start it here. I'll just head on down over the hill. Have to be super careful here. But I want a route so that it at least takes care of the transportation for me, just to help leverage my time a little bit. Because while it's going to and from the BGA, I of course can be doing other things. And you know, obviously some functions in here are easier to hire than others. And forage harvesting isn't one of those. It's easily hired except for the driver of the forage harvester itself. So all of the carting, you know, we get to do that part. So, but it's a long haul, so I would just as soon have the AI in here do that through this handy course play. So I'll get a route all set up. I think last time, yeah, I just went to the left to head up the hill. I don't know if that's the best way. Yeah, I see just to the right of us, we have another hill up here to finish cultivating. Last episode, I know we kind of started clear up at the top of the hill where our harvest ends each year. Good, there's no cars coming. We sneak out on the road. I turn on my beacon. Beacon? Do I have a beacon? I don't know. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. But anyway, we started up on top of the hill, so I still have some cultivating to do up there. I have a few more bales to pick up. So in order to carve out time to do some of that work, it'll be nice to have at least the road work in here, the hauling of silage part, animated. So I'll just try to carefully set this up. Oh, it's kind of cool to look out over there and see the barges. Oh, it's still doing that silly thing. That's another thing that's going to bother me. The smoke on it is just blowing out. Anyways, the trouble with this game, I don't know how it is for you. You know, when you tinker with it long enough, you keep finding things that just compel you to want to fix it, change it, whatever, make it better. And for all I know, there are things you all have seen as you've stuck with this particular series, and there's things maybe you would do differently too, or that you would fix, that I'm oblivious to. But the neat thing about this particular game is we can. Oh my goodness. Yeah, this is so far. Makes me wonder if, by the time I sell all this at the BGA, for all I know, I'll just barely be covering the cost of the fuel. I wish I could remember what I started at. But I mean, these are some heavy trailers, and this mod that I'm using just drains the fuel. So maybe it's time for another tweak. I seem to recall that once you have, is it more than 10,000 liters in your trailer, that that's, when it starts taking more juice. Probably shouldn't have come in here, but I'll choose to stop right here. Almost hit reset. So this is Island to BGA. How about that? Alright, reset. I'm going to take this in here. I think I started a pile right over here. Yeah. At least it makes it the whole distance. I think before I head over there, fortunately, there is fuel here at the BGA. Can I see anything else about this BGA? Yeah, see there we see inside the slurry tank, by the way. And I want to use that at some point, so that'll be in a future episode. I know I haven't done anything with it. Farmer Yip's map here, it wasn't really designed for the extra DLCs. Oh, what am I doing? What am I doing? That is silly. I need to set up another course for the way back. Phew! At least I wasn't halfway back before remembering. I think other courses I've started roughly about here, so we'll just take off. Gotta get those two first critical points in. And back to the field we will go. Maybe in a person's style of play, they enjoy karting. I suppose if you're on a multiplayer server and you get a group of people, I suppose it's pretty fun to drive back and forth in the field. It's action versus sitting in the forage harvester itself, just going back and forth in the field. I could see where maybe some people get bored with that. But I know with single player, there's only so many hours in the day. I suppose if I really love karting, I would stop all just to do it, but it makes me all the more thankful we have tools, kind of like courseplay, to take care of that part. And courseplay was awesome to have, I think, all the way through Farm Sim 17. I think in Farm Sim 19, courseplay was supplanted by auto drive, I think it was called, which actually did it even one better, where you could set up a road network where multiple courses, they traveled the same roads and you had stations on the roads, and it worked. Saved by the bell. It worked in lockstep with courseplay, and courseplay kind of the end was relegated more to field operations and that kind of thing versus doing a long route, kind of like we're setting up here. So, well, we all heard the bell. I just wanted to share a little bit on the goings on here on Feldy, and we obviously have a pile load of work to do out here in the field to harvest all this. Off cam, I moved some of the other harvesting machinery down to the lower farm, where we'll need it. Presumably, I'm hoping to plant a bunch of potatoes, but I at least got it down in the shed and put away. Still have some bales up top that need to be picked up, so I'll maybe do that in a future episode. But for now, I just want to carefully. This is a trouble with a course, right along the water's edge. You always wonder if you're going to end up in the drink, through some glitch of the computer or what have you. So, but I'll get this out to the field and come back to you next episode and see where we go from there. Thank you all for coming along. I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.